Hello, and welcome to the Behavior Education Connection, the podcast that works to connect the world of behavior analysis and the world of education. We focus on topics important to behavior analysts who work in the public schools and those who support them. Join us and spend time gaining insights and ideas as our host talks with fellow behavior analysts as well as other experts in the field. Welcome to the Behavior Education Connection. I'm your host, Dr. Selena Layden, and I am joined today by Donna Harwood. Hi, Donna. How are you?
Good. How are you today?
I'm great. Can you introduce yourself for us?
Absolutely. My name is Donna Harwood. I am a behavior consultative teacher, which is what they call that role in Hanover County Public Schools. And I assist special education and general education teachers with challenges they have with students in the classroom.
Great. I am really excited to see you today, Donna. We've known each other for quite a while. And today we're going to talk about that transition from the classroom into a more administrative type role, coaching role, the role that you're in. And so I want to start out by, can you tell us a little bit about your background? Because you were a teacher when I met you.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I graduated college, I had a teaching license, but I didn't really feel prepared to be in a classroom of a bunch of students. So I moved home and I got the job as a paraprofessional instructional assistant at a small private school designed for students with autism around the corner from my house, just coincidentally as a summer job while I was trying to figure out what I was going to do in the fall. It turned out that school was the Alpine Learning Group run by Bridget Taylor at the time. I mean, she still runs it now, but now she's way more well-known than she was 20 years ago.
Yes.
So I just happened to get that job and I worked there for 2 years and I was really interested in what they were doing. It was obviously ABA based. I'd never worked with kids with disabilities of any type before. So that was really fascinating to work with all these students with autism. So from there, I moved a couple times. I had different jobs and I worked in a private day school in Maryland. And then when I moved to Virginia, I could not find quite what I wanted in terms of private day. So from where I'd come from was super strict and super, very selective and very research-based. And the schools that I was looking at were not quite that. So I finally said, you know what, maybe there's nothing around here. I'm just going to go back to my roots and work in the public school. However, I'd only worked with students with disabilities for the past 6 years.
Right.
So I didn't feel, I wasn't even more prepared to work as a kindergarten teacher than I was when I graduated college because I didn't even now have that experience, right? So I applied as a special education teacher in Henrico and just happened to get an interview. The teacher who had started that year started in, the end of August, beginning of September, lasted for 2 months and was like, whoa, what did I get myself into? It was a K2 class. And so she quit. So when I moved to Virginia after I got married in the fall of 2004, that was happened to be open, just coincidentally, was this autism class. Fortunately, I knew autism, that's what I had been doing. And so that started my career in public school. As the years went on, I was there for 14 years. So I realized that there needed to be a blend of what I had done in the past with what I was doing now. While I was there, I got my endorsements in special ed and I did all that. And I got a master's in administration because I thought maybe I need to kind of be in charge of these classrooms, like as assistant principal, because I knew my skills from hands-on practice, but I had no formal training in ABA, right? So I was like, oh, but I know to do this because I know what this is, but other teachers didn't. So I kind of thought that would be the route. And then I realized that really,
you didn't want to be an administrator.
I didn't want to be an administrator. No, because it's such a small
I don't blame you. I don't either.
Really not what I want to do.
Kudos to our administrators, but yes, no, I get that that's not what I wanted to do either. So,
and it's such a small percent, like special education, and
exactly.
Was such a small percentage of what the administrator did. I was like, I don't think anything else. But I kept thinking about the students with autism and all I had learned back in the past. So I Yeah, so I decided I might as well get my BCBA because all my friends did, because that's what everyone else had done. I had just kind of fallen into it. So I did that. And what I realized was that when I had left college and gotten that first job, I really liked the research. I really liked the structure. I really liked the science behind behavior analysis, almost more so than just the teaching. So I was trying to find a job that combined them both. And that's kind of how I landed here 7 years ago in this role.
Yeah, I think that you have, so, there's people like me who I was a behavior analyst and then decided I wanted to work in education.
Mhm.
And then there are a growing number of people who are in the classroom who have either somehow been introduced to ABA or like you have kind of I fell into it backstory. I think those of us who've been around a while like somehow fell into behavior analysis.
Sure.
Um, I kind of have a similar story where I fell into it, but and so when you became certified and you decided you wanted to move into more of, and I'm going to call your role more of a coaching role, like you do a lot of coaching and supporting of teachers.
Absolutely.
So now how do you use your BCBA knowledge and skills in that role?
So it's tricky because I work with a lot of teachers who've been doing this for a long time, right?
Yeah,
And so they have their teaching strategies, and they know what they want and what their goal is and how they want to do it. So it is hard kind of to come in with sometimes a new approach, sometimes not. Sometimes when you talk through just basically like this is why we're doing it this way. This is like kind of the reasoning, and you can get some buy-in that way. But I think it is hard trying to first get them to latch on to what I'm trying to do. But I do think that the small steps, if you can just change one little part of their day, let's just introduce this schedule or this motivation system that's not hard to use. That's not, then you get that, end up getting that buy-in. I try to really look at, what we can change, like I said, in those small steps, so that we do get that buy-in, and then they're willing to learn more strategies and try different things, and try things that might be a little bit more labor intensive or time consuming when you're teaching a class of 20 or 20
right.
some. I do lean on my experience a lot as a teacher. Like I've been there, I've done this. Like I understand how hard it is when you have a class of 10 students with autism, all different behaviors, all different levels of communication, all the things. And it is hard to say, you really need to have this specific structured, timed intervention with this student, knowing that's what they need, but knowing that maybe you don't have enough staff to be working with the other students at that time. And especially in the public school, kids are in and out. They're out at, they're all multi-grade level, right? Whether it's K2, 3, 5, or K5, we don't have often one pair per grade level. So you have students going out to lunch and the recess, and it's hard. And I try to empathize a lot and say, I know it's hard. Like scheduling, I know it took me a day to do, like not even exaggerating, trying to put all the pieces together. So
just to have it changed on you, right? Because then that's the next thing that happens.
Of course, and someone's absent, and it's not, teaching hasn't gotten easier. Special education hasn't gotten easier over the years. So, it's hard to find the staff. I know we have a lot of positions that are open for paraprofessionals, or they last for a little bit and then they leave and whatever. So, so I try to use my experience and share that with them, but also try to take those baby steps, and see like what are little things that will help make your day easier and kind of build on that.
Yeah, and I'm willing to bet that your experience and being able to say, look, I've been there. I know what you're dealing with, and I had to deal with it too. I bet that they value that a lot.
I hope so. I mean, there's several of us in this role, and some of us have been in the classrooms more recently versus later, a long time ago. And you can tell that you do get more buy-in when you're like, listen, just a couple of years ago, I had students, this was happening over here and this was happening over here, and it made me pull my hair out. And you can get a little bit more often, not always, of course, but often with someone who's like, yes, that's exactly what I'm experiencing,
So Interesting question for you. So now that you can look back on your experience and your certification and all the things that you've done, is it worth it? Should teachers consider, and I'm not saying every teacher, but like, should teachers consider getting their BCBA or learning about behavior analysis?
Oh, I think so, 100%. I mean, and that's, I mean, of course I'm biased, but I do think it gives a little bit different, not a little different perspective. Yes, I'll say that. But also, I mean, obviously knowledge is power, but so much of our regular everyday world is a product of behavior analysis, right? Like people don't even
Absolutely.
know it. So if you can learn about that and be like, oh, that's why I do these things. That's why everyone else does these things. That's how we learned all these, strategies and things and behaviors. And I think the more you can learn and see how it relates to every aspect of our lives, the more just the way your view will shift and the way your mindset will shift when it comes to working with your students and teaching your classroom. Kind of finding, talking about function, talking about motivation, like all these things are happening all around us all the time, but people who don't know the science and don't know the ABA at all think it's something separate. So I think the more that people and teachers learn about behavior analysis, the more they can see how it does relate to everything they're doing on a daily basis.
For sure. And I think, as I've worked with a lot of teachers and I don't know if you have the same experience, but a lot of times I go in because there's that one kid, right? And you go in and yes, that one kid is struggling, but it's usually not just that one kid, right? Like there's something in the classroom that isn't working right.
Right.
And because teachers we're always too close to our own behavior, so that's one issue. But the idea that I don't really understand behavior analysis, I don't really know much about the science of behavior, and I can't see this one little thing or many things depending on the classroom. I sometimes think teachers take that on really personally, and I understand it, right? Like that's your blood, sweat, and tears that you're giving to these kids. But isn't it so much better to be able to say, actually, I'm not a bad person. I'm not a bad teacher. There's this thing in the environment. And if I can make these little shifts or I can make these little adjustments, everybody has a much better experience.
Yes, we find that all the time that maybe your other students in your class are able to deal with the structure or the lack of visuals or whatever's better than the one student, but there are often underlying strategies that we can teach that will make everybody's life better, not just the student who's having the bigger challenges. Because just looking at it, like you said, like from an outside lens, we are too close. You're putting all this effort in, but if you don't know the function or you don't know why he's doing what he's doing, little Johnny over here, then no matter what you do and all the things you create, it's really not going to make a difference, right? So I see that a lot where teachers are like,
and how frustrating and how frustrating that is. It's got to be. I'm trying so hard and there's nothing changing.
Yeah, and I get a lot of teachers where I go in, they're like, we've done everything. I've done everything I know. I'm like, but why?
And they probably have. They probably have done everything they know.
Absolutely. But like, why are you doing all these things when he's clearly doing X, Y, and Z for this reason?
Exactly.
None of those are going to. That comes up a lot in behavior intervention plans because I also work on a lot of those in the schools. I facilitate creation of those, and everybody wants to throw in all the strategies they've heard of and they know have worked with other students, visual supports, all the things. Great, but if the function of the student's behavior is seeking attention, there needs to be some strategies in there that address how he's going to get attention appropriately. How are you going to not continually give me attention throughout the day? Like really kind of like combining those two and making sure that what you're doing is really addressing that function. And then of course, motivation. Sometimes it's hard for the teachers to step back and really look at that without, me coming in and having that conversation with them.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I do think, learning more would just help them see that for themselves a lot of times.
Yeah, and I don't necessarily think every teacher needs to become, it would be great in the world if every teacher was also a behavior analyst, but not everyone's going to do that. But I do think having some of that foundational knowledge, it would just make everybody's life so much it would make your life easier too, but it would make everybody's life so much easier, just understanding why contingencies work the way they do.
Yeah, and I would say, some of our best paraprofessionals are the ones that are also RBTs,
Yes.
right? It's like they don't have all the knowledge, but they at least understand because they've gone through the 40 hours. They at least understand certain aspects better than the average paraprofessional who is trying their best, but they may not have the training. They may have just fell into the job as well, and they're doing their best. But we do have several RBTs in Hanover that do have that added like knowledge from that process.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Donna, this has been a really great conversation. Before we sign off, is there anything that you want to add or any considerations for teachers who might be thinking about getting their BCBA?
I mean, to your point, not every teacher needs to have a BCBA, or to be a BCBA, excuse me. But I do think taking some, when you're getting your recertification points, taking a class or just doing a basic online of what it is, any information about it, I think would be helpful. You don't have to go the whole way, but just knowing that behavior analysis and students with disabilities or not, it just adds an extra layer of knowledge for you to be able to manage your classroom, hopefully in a more productive way and easier, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. And what teacher can't use easier life right now?
Right.
Well,
true.
yes, for sure. Well, Donna, thank you so much for joining me today. And to our listeners, we look forward to seeing you on our next episode.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Behavior Education Connection. Join us next time for another great conversation about behavior analysis in the schools. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on an episode. Sending out a special thanks to the Virginia Department of Education for supporting our work. We look forward to connecting with you all again soon.